Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into some incredibly practical stuff today, drawing insights from a source focused on how we can truly change your thinking.
That's right. And what's really fascinating, I think, is how it distills these strategies, especially, from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, into skills you can actually learn.
Right. Skills aimed at managing stress, handling those difficult emotions better, and just, well, genuinely improving your quality of life.
Exactly. And the material presents it in a way that's accessible, almost like a self-help guide.
Yeah, you don't need a PhD to start using these ideas. But we should probably say up front, this isn't a replacement for professional therapy if you're dealing with, say, a clinical disorder,
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial distinction. And interestingly, this source also folds in mindfulness techniques.
which have become much more integrated with CBT lately, haven't they?
They really have. Things like mindfulness, just observing your thoughts without getting swept away. They can really complement the cognitive work, potentially boost the results,
So our mission for this deep dive then, let's try to cut through to the core ideas here. We want to understand how our thinking patterns can actually create distress.
and then crucially, look at the practical ways suggested for modifying those patterns.
So that you, listening, feel better equipped to handle, well, whatever life throws your way.
Okay, let's jump right in. The absolute cornerstone really is understanding that connection between events, our thoughts about them, and then our
The
feelings.
classic ABC model, right?
Yeah.
But the belief or appraisal, that's where all the action is.
Exactly. It's not just event A leads straight to consequence C, the emotion or behavior. There's that vital middle step, how we interpret the event, B, the meaning we give it.
Like the example used in the material.
hmm
A friend doesn't return your call. That's A, the event. Simple.
But how you feel about it, the C totally depends on B, your thought.
Right. If you think, ugh, typical, she only calls when she needs something, bang, anger.
Or, oh no, what if something's wrong? I hope she's okay. Then it's worry.
Maybe you think, she's probably just snowed under. Indifference, maybe.
But if the thought is, she doesn't really care about me, that leads straight to feeling hurt.
Same event,
Yeah.
completely different emotional outcomes,
Hmm.
all down to that one thought. That's really the power of B, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And it's important to remember emotions aren't just annoying static.
Hmm.
Even the unpleasant ones, they have a purpose.
They're like signals, yeah.
Yeah.
Alerting us to something that needs attention.
Precisely, they motivate us. Think about Kirsten's anxiety pushing her to work on her essay, or Neil's anger prompting him to actually talk assertively to his boss.
Or Corinne's loneliness nudging her towards joining that group. Sid's guilt getting him to engage more with his kids. Avoiding bad feelings is a huge motivator.
It really is. And, the material also briefly mentions how our past, our early experiences, even our basic temperament can kind of set the stage for our typical thinking patterns.
Shapes the lens through which we see things now.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a good lead into talking about those common thinking patterns that often get us into trouble. What some people, like Albert Ellis, called irrational beliefs.
So irrational here doesn't just mean illogical, does it? It's more about whether the thinking helps or harms us.
Exactly that. Thinking is unhelpful or irrational if it consistently works against our basic desire for well-being. If it leads to emotions that feel out of proportion or actions that sabotage us.
And the source makes a really key point. It's often less about the content of the belief and more about how rigidly we hold on to it.
Yes, holding beliefs as absolute demands, I must succeed, people should always be fair, life has to be easy, that's where the trouble starts, because life just doesn't conform to those rigid rules.
So when reality inevitably clashes with the demand, you get upset.
Big time. Contrast that with holding them as preferences. I'd prefer to succeed. I'd like people to be fair. That allows for flexibility, for acceptance when things don't go perfectly.
Much less painful. So let's dig into some of those common thinking errors the source identifies. First up is overgeneralizing.
Ah, yes. Taking one or two negative events and spinning them into a huge, sweeping conclusion, often using words like always, never, everyone.
That feeling of, see, just when things were looking up, something always goes wrong, or telling yourself, I never get things right.
The example of Jillian dropping out of university and concluding, I'm a total failure, is classic overgeneralization. One setback defines her entire self.
Which leads neatly into labeling. That's like the ultimate overgeneralization, isn't it?
It really is. Instead of acknowledging a specific mistake that was a clumsy thing to do, you just slap on a global negative label. I'm an idiot, he's useless, she's a disaster.
And the source warns that this really chips away at self-esteem. It reduces a whole complex person down to one negative trait or action.
Then there's mind reading, assuming you know what other people are thinking, and surprise, surprise, it's usually negative towards you.
Like Kylie, assuming her husband's lack of interest meant he found her unattractive, when it was something else entirely.
Or Len avoiding parties because he's convinced everyone is judging him negatively.
And that kind of thinking can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Len stays home, doesn't connect, which proves his belief.
Exactly. He never gets the chance to see if his assumption is actually wrong.
Okay, next up, awfulizing, also
Yeah.
known as catastrophizing.
This is taking something that's maybe a minor hassle, a 10 or 20 on a 0 to 100 awfulness scale, and blowing it up in your mind to a full-blown 100 catastrophe.
A small mistake at work becomes, I'm going to get fired. A slightly awkward chat becomes, everyone hates me.
Yeah, perspective gets completely lost. It magnifies the negative way out of proportion.
How about the just world fallacy?
The belief that the world should be fair and people ought to act ethically. It sounds nice, but...
But the world isn't always fair, and people don't always act ethically. So holding that as a rigid demand just leads to constant anger and frustration.
Precisely. It sets you up for disappointment again and again.
Filtering is another one, like wearing mental blinkers that only let you see the negative.
You could get 10 compliments and 1 criticism, and you only ruminate on that single criticism, completely ignoring the positives.
And comparing. Constantly measuring yourself, your life, your achievements against others, usually unfavorably.
Yes, like Kathy feeling inadequate comparing her life to her friend's seemingly perfect one. It's often comparing your behind-the-scenes reality to someone else's highlight reel.
Recipe for feeling bad about yourself.
Yeah.
Finally, hindsight vision.
This is beating yourself up for past decisions using knowledge you only gained after the fact. I should have known better. Why didn't I see that coming?
Like Andy regretting his career choice years later, or Selena agonizing over her marriage. You made the best choice you could at the time with what you knew then.
Exactly. Learning from the past. Good. Blaming yourself with the benefit of hindsight. Not helpful at all.
Okay, so we've got the ABC link, and we identified some common ways our thinking can go off track. The really hopeful part is what comes next. Actually doing something about it, disputing these thoughts.
Yes, disputing. It's not about positive affirmations. It's about actively examining and challenging the validity and usefulness of those unhelpful thoughts. The source gives us a few angles on this. First, logical disputing.
Putting the thought on trial, basically. Checking the evidence.
Pretty much. You ask, is this thought actually logical? Where's the hard evidence for it? What thinking error might I be making here? Can I come up with a more balanced, realistic alternative? Socratic questioning helps here.
Like that driving example, the belief I must always be punctual. Logically disputing that would be like asking,
Is it really true that I must? What's the actual realistic consequence of being 5 minutes late? Is it truly a catastrophe or just inconvenient? You're aiming to replace that rigid demand with a more flexible preference. I prefer to be on time, but it's not the end of the world if I'm occasionally delayed.
Makes sense. Then there's goal-focused thinking, or persuasive disputing.
This one's very pragmatic. You simply ask, is thinking this way helping me achieve my goals right now? Is it helping me feel the way I want to feel?
So if the thought is making you miserable or stopping you from doing something important,
Then that's a powerful reason to let it go, even if it feels true. Like Cynthia getting frustrated on holiday. Did that thinking help her enjoy the trip? No. Or Linda getting worked up about dinner prices. Did that help her enjoy the evening with friends? Probably not. It focuses on the utility of the thought.
And the third method, which often feels really potent, is behavioral disputing.
Ah, yes. This is where you challenge your thoughts by changing your actions. Because often, our behavior just reinforces our negative beliefs.
Like avoiding parties reinforces the belief I'm socially awkward.
Exactly. So behavioral disputing means acting against the belief. You deliberately go to the party, you make the phone call you're dreading, you try the task you think you'll fail at.
You gather real-world evidence that contradicts the old thought.
Precisely. Ruth overcoming her driving anxiety by actually gradually driving more is a perfect example. Her experience directly disproved her fearful predictions.
Those shame-attacking exercises for social anxiety sound intense, but based on the same principle, right? Do something mildly embarrassing to learn the sky doesn't fall in.
Exactly. It's powerful because it bypasses intellectual argument and hits you on an experiential level. Your gut learns something new.
Okay, great. So we have this framework. Identify the thought, challenge it logically, check if it helps your goals, and act against it. How does this toolkit apply to specific struggles people face? Let's start with anger.
Right, anger often feels justified, but it's frequently fueled and sustained by unhelpful thinking. Rigid shoulds about how others must behave, or beliefs about anger itself, like thinking it gives you control.
So beyond just calming down in the moment, maybe labeling the physical feeling, taking a time out.
Long-term management really involves tackling those underlying rigid beliefs, challenging the idea that people have to meet your expectations, or that the world must operate according to your rules of fairness.
Replacing demands with preferences again. I'd prefer if they acted differently, but I can cope if they don't.
Exactly. And assertive communication, expressing your needs clearly, not aggressively, is vital. Sometimes finding empathy helps too. Disputing the thoughts behind road rage or annoyance with a neighbor are good examples of shifting that perspective.
What about anxiety? We know it's triggered by perceived threat, heavily shaped by interpretation.
And crucially maintained by those safety behaviors.
The things you do to avoid feeling anxious, like avoiding situations, over-preparing, seeking reassurance.
Yes, because those actions prevent you from learning, through experience, that the feared outcome probably won't happen, or that you could cope if it did. It keeps the anxiety cycle going.
And specific anxiety is often linked to specific thought patterns, right?
Definitely. Like an excessive need for approval leading to avoiding any potential conflict, like Rick, or perfectionism driving constant worry about mistakes, or a huge need for control, making you anxious about anything uncertain like Valerie and her daughter, or Jana's rigid rules, Peter's relationship anxiety.
So the strategy involves challenging those underlying needs and doing behavioral experiments, like deliberately not seeking approval or letting go of trying to control something uncontrollable.
That's exactly it. For worry specifically, you challenge the usefulness of worrying. Does it actually help? What's the evidence? Compare the likely outcome to the catastrophe you're imagining, like Greg did with his dental fear.
And for panic, the source mentions exposure.
Yes, facing the feared physical sensations, interoceptive exposure, or the feared situations, gradually to learn they aren't truly dangerous, panic surfing, riding the wave, plus techniques like slow breathing to manage the physical side. Mindfulness is also huge here.
Learning to just observe the anxious thoughts and feelings without fighting them.
Exactly, and committing to your goals despite the anxiety. It often lessens when you stop struggling against it so hard. Remy and Charles found mindfulness helped pinpoint the source of their anxiety.
Okay, let's talk self-esteem. How do these thinking patterns undermine it?
Oh, in so many ways. Constantly comparing yourself to others. Basing your entire self-worth on achievements that's conditional self-acceptance, like Dan struggling after his business issues, or Roy needing a partner to feel worthy, needing constant approval, overgeneralizing mistakes, labeling yourself negatively after a setback, like Jillian or Vicky.
So the antidote proposed is unconditional self-acceptance.
Yes, the idea that your worth as a human being is inherent. It's not dependent on your performance, your looks, or other people's opinions. You accept yourself, flaws and all.
And the strategies involve challenging those harsh self-labels, focusing on strengths, setting realistic goals, breaking them down, seeing mistakes as learning chances.
And practicing honesty in relationships, being authentic, all working towards that unconditional acceptance.
Now, depression. Thinking patterns play a huge role in keeping it going, don't they?
Absolutely. Rumination is a big one, just churning negative thoughts and problems over and over, pointlessly, often feeling like you can't stop. Plus, intensely self-critical thoughts, feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, it's all pointless, I'm a failure. These thoughts feel completely true when depressed.
But they're often distorted by the depression itself, so disputing them is key.
Yes, identifying those specific depressive thinking errors and challenging their validity. Mindfulness helps too, creating space to see them as just thoughts, not facts, like Victor found.
And crucially, depression often involves withdrawing, becoming inactive, which makes everything feel worse.
Exactly. So a vital part of the strategy is tackling that inactivity, using problem-solving skills to break down overwhelming tasks into tiny, manageable steps.
And deliberately scheduling pleasant or meaningful activities, even small ones. Behavioral activation.
Yes, using something like Leonie's daily activities log helps track activities and mood, building momentum to break the cycle of inactivity and negative thinking.
While acknowledging other factors, the focus here is really on these psychological tools.
Definitely. And that leads into problem solving as a general skill, framing problems not as catastrophes, but as challenges to be tackled.
Which fosters a sense of control, right? But also knowing when to accept things you can't change.
That's a crucial distinction. For the things you can change, the source suggests a structured approach. Nail down the problem clearly. Brainstorm options. Set specific goals. Break them into sub-goals. Make an action plan, like Chris did with his business idea.
And acknowledging that often the biggest roadblocks are internal. Fear, lack of confidence, just inertia.
Absolutely. Low frustration tolerance, giving up easily. So addressing those psychological obstacles, using the disputing techniques we've discussed, is often part of the plan itself. Visualization can help bridge the gap to actually starting.
It seems like effective communication ties so much of this together, managing anger, anxiety in relationships, building self-esteem.
It's fundamental. The source contrasts alienating ways of communicating, blaming, attacking, needing to win with conciliatory approaches that aim for understanding.
It offers practical tools like I statements.
Yes. Saying, I feel frustrated when the dishes are left out, instead of you always leave a mess. It focuses on your experience, not attacking the other person. Much easier for them to hear.
Then there's the whole message structure. That sounded really useful.
It is. A clear formula for tricky conversations. Start gently. Preliminary statement. State facts, observations. Share your perspective, thoughts, feelings, and say what you need. Needs. The examples with Lucy and her husband, or Ben and his mom about the garbage, show how it can prevent escalation.
And assertive communication. Clearly stating your needs, setting boundaries, saying no.
Which requires challenging the beliefs that stop us, like, I must always put others first, or it's selfish to say no. Recognizing the cost of not being assertive, resentment, burnout. The examples of saying no to lying or asking for money back are very direct.
Finally, validating. Showing you understand the other person's view, even if you disagree.
I can see why you feel that way. It's incredibly disarming. It reduces defensiveness and opens space for connection, like in that parent-child example. It doesn't mean you agree, just that you get their perspective.
Wow. Okay, so bringing this all together, this deep dive really highlights how much our internal world, our emotional life, is shaped by our thinking.
Hugely. And while our past plays a role, the really empowering message here is that we're not just stuck with those old patterns, we actually have the capacity to change how we think.
These techniques, spotting the thinking errors, disputing them logically, checking their usefulness, acting against them, applying them to anger, anxiety, self-esteem, depression, problem-solving, communication, it's like a whole toolkit.
It really is. And they're not just concepts, they're practical skills you can learn in practice. It takes effort, for sure, but applying them consistently can build resilience, help you navigate tough times better, improve relationships, enhance your overall well-being.
Yeah, the real power isn't just in the knowing, it's in the doing, isn't it? Even starting small.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up, maybe take a moment. What's one thing, one idea or technique from this discussion that particularly resonated with you?
And here's a final thought to mull over. If you suspect some of your thinking patterns aren't really serving you well, what's the very first, maybe small step you could take, perhaps even today, to begin challenging just one of them?